When you finally stop reaching out, stop explaining yourself, stop trying to fix things, and stop chasing her for reassurance, something powerful begins to happen beneath the surface. At first, it feels uncomfortable, even unnatural, because most men are conditioned to believe that effort means pursuing harder, talking more, and proving their value through constant action. But attraction doesn't work that way. Attraction grows in space, it grows in mystery. It grows when emotion is allowed to breathe instead of being smothered by neediness. Your silence, when done from strength rather than resentment, becomes a mirror that forces her to confront what your presence actually meant in her life. In the early stages of separation, she may feel relief. This is normal and predictable. The pressure is gone. The expectations are gone. The emotional responsibility is gone. She feels free, and freedom feels exciting at first. But relief is not the same as happiness. Relief fades quickly, and when it does, the reality of loss begins to set in. This is where your absence starts doing the work that words never could. When you are no longer there to provide emotional stability, consistency, protection, leadership, or masculine presence, the contrast becomes undeniable. She begins to notice the silence not as peace, but as emptiness. When you were present, many of the things you did felt ordinary to her. That's the nature of familiarity. Humans adapt quickly to comfort. Emotional safety becomes invisible when it's always there. But remove it, and suddenly its value becomes crystal clear. She starts remembering how you showed up when things were hard, how you handled stress, how you made decisions, how you listened, how you stayed grounded when emotions ran high. These memories don't surface because you remind her of them. They surface because your absence creates space for reflection, and reflection is where emotional awareness is born. Women don't usually process loss logically at first. They process it emotionally, and emotion requires time. When you chase, you interrupt that process. When you explain, you give her certainty. When you beg, you remove mystery. Certainty kills attraction. Mystery fuels it. By stepping back, you allow uncertainty to enter her emotional world. She starts wondering what you're doing, how you're feeling, whether you've moved on, whether you still care. That curiosity is not accidental. It's a direct response to the vacuum your absence creates. Silence forces her to sit with her own emotions instead of distracting herself with your attention. Without your validation, she must generate her own emotional conclusions. And this is crucial because people value what they conclude on their own far more than what is explained to them. When she starts to feel a loss, it feels real to her, not imposed by you. That's why it's powerful. It's authentic. It's internal. And once an emotion is internalized, it becomes very difficult to ignore. As time passes, the mind begins to romanticize the past. This isn't manipulation, it's psychology. The human brain tends to soften negative memories and amplify positive ones over time, especially when emotional attachment was present. She begins to remember the laughter more than the arguments, the connection more than the conflict, the way you made her feel more than the reason she left. This process cannot happen if you are constantly reminding her of pain, guilt, or pressure. It only happens in silence. Your absence also removes resistance. When you chase, she resists. When you argue, she defends. When you plead, she pulls away. But when you disappear calmly and with dignity, there is nothing to push against. Resistance collapses. And when resistance collapses, attraction has space to reemerge. She no longer sees you as someone trying to take something from her emotionally. She begins to remember you as someone who added value to her life. Another important shift happens internally for her: accountability. When you are gone, there is no one else to blame, no one to argue with, no one to project unresolved emotions onto. She starts replaying conversations, decisions, and moments where she may have taken you for granted. This isn't because you want her to feel guilty, it's because silence removes distraction. Growth and awareness often come from discomfort, and your absence creates exactly that. Meanwhile, something equally important is happening to you. By choosing absence over pursuit, you are reclaiming your emotional center. You stop reacting to fear. You stop operating from scarcity. You begin to rebuild self-respect. And this inner shift subtly changes your energy. Even if she never sees you, she feels it if contact ever resumes. Emotional strength is not loud. It's calm, and calm is magnetic. As days turn into weeks, the emotional gap widens. She begins to compare new experiences with the emotional standard you set. And this is where the real clarity hits. New attention may excite her, but it lacks depth. New conversations may feel fun, but they lack familiarity and emotional safety. She starts realizing that what she lost wasn't just a man, it was a feeling. And feelings are not easily replaced. This is the moment where she truly understands the loss. Not intellectually, but emotionally. She understands it in quiet moments, in late nights, in random triggers, in situations where she expects to feel fulfilled but doesn't. And because this realization is self generated, it carries weight. It changes how she sees you retroactively. The man she once questioned now appears more valuable in hindsight. The stability she once overlooked now feels rare. Importantly, your absence communicates confidence without words. It says you respect yourself enough to walk away from what no longer serves you. It says you don't need to convince anyone of your worth. It says you trust that what's meant for you will recognize your value without force. This silent confidence is deeply attractive because it signals emotional maturity and abundance. When she finally reaches out, it's rarely direct at first. It may be subtle, a casual message, a random check-in, a memory reference. This isn't accidental, it's a test. She's trying to feel your emotional temperature. She's trying to see if the man she left is still there or if he's grown. And how you respond matters, but only because your absence laid the foundation. Without that absence, the message never comes. The most powerful thing about absence is that it restores balance. It brings you back to your center and forces her to confront reality. It allows attraction to regrow organically rather than being negotiated. It transforms loss into clarity, silence into awareness, and distance into desire. And when she finally understands what she lost, it's not because you told her, it's because she felt it. And feelings, once awakened, have a way of pulling people back toward what they let go of. When you choose self-control over reaction, discipline over emotion, and calm over chaos, you quietly shift the entire power dynamic of the relationship without ever needing to announce it. Most men lose leverage not because they lack value, but because they reveal their fear the moment things feel uncertain. They chase clarity, demand reassurance, and seek emotional guarantees in moments where strength is required instead. But emotional strength isn't about suppressing feelings. It's about not letting those feelings dictate your behavior. The moment you master that, the balance of power begins to tilt back in your favor. In emotionally charged situations, reactions are predictable. She expects anger, pleading, long messages, explanations, or dramatic attempts to win her back. These reactions signal emotional dependency, even when they come from a place of care. Dependency weakens attraction because it places your emotional stability in her hands. When you remove that leverage by staying composed, you communicate something far more powerful than words. That you are grounded, self-sufficient, and capable of standing on your own. This doesn't make you cold, it makes you solid. Power in relationships is not about control over another person. It's about control over yourself. The man who can regulate his emotions under pressure naturally commands respect. When she sees that her decisions no longer destabilize you, it creates a psychological shift. She realizes she no longer has the emotional upper hand. The certainty she once felt is replaced with curiosity and eventually unease. Not because you are trying to make her feel insecure, but because the dynamic has changed. You are no longer chasing validation, you are centered in your own value. Emotional self-control removes drama from the equation. Drama is addictive, but it's also exhausting. When you refuse to participate in emotional chaos, the contrast becomes clear. She may initially feel frustrated that she can't provoke a reaction, but frustration often turns into respect, and respect is a prerequisite for attraction. You show her that your sense of self isn't fragile. You don't need to be right, and you don't need to be chosen to feel complete. That quiet confidence is rare, and rarity increases value. Another important shift occurs when you stop trying to manage her emotions. Many men fall into the trap of believing it's their responsibility to make her feel secure, happy, or understood at all times. When the relationship ends or becomes unstable, they panic because they've tied their self-worth to that role. By stepping back and allowing her to feel whatever she feels without interference, you demonstrate emotional maturity. You're no longer trying to fix, convince, or save. You're allowing. An allowance signals strength. When you no longer seek reassurance, you become unpredictable in the best possible way. Predictability kills attraction because it removes mystery. When she knows you'll always be there, always respond, always explain, there's nothing to wonder about. But when you remain calm and reserved, she begins to wonder what's going on internally for you. She starts questioning her assumptions. She wonders whether you've moved on, whether you're unbothered. whether you've grown. That curiosity reactivates emotional investment. Self control also prevents you from making irreversible mistakes during emotional peaks. Words spoken in desperation can't be taken back. Messages sent in panic can't be unsent. By choosing restraint, you protect your dignity and preserve your image in her mind. Even if she never acknowledges it, she notices. She notices that you didn't collapse. She notices that you didn't try to guilt her into staying. She notices that you handled the situation with class, and class leaves an impression. As the dynamic shifts, she begins to feel something she didn't expect: emotional tension. Not negative tension, but uncertainty. When you were chasing, the outcome felt predictable. She knew where she stood. She knew you were available. That certainty gave her control. But now, with your emotional stability and distance, the certainty disappears. And with uncertainty comes emotional engagement. She starts paying attention again, not because you demanded it, but because you no longer need it. This shift also triggers a reassessment of roles. When you no longer play the role of the pursuer, she subconsciously feels the absence of polarity. Relationships thrive on masculine, feminine balance. Masculine energy is grounded, calm, and self-directed. Feminine energy is expressive, emotional, and responsive. When you stop over pursuing and return to your center, polarity is restored. She begins to feel pulled rather than pushed. Emotional discipline sends a clear signal you value yourself, and people treat you according to how you treat yourself. When you don't tolerate emotional chaos, disrespect, or uncertainty without grounding yourself first, you set a new standard. That standard doesn't need to be spoken, it's embodied. And embodiment is far more persuasive than explanation. She starts to realize that access to you is not automatic. It must be earned through mutual effort and respect. Another subtle but powerful effect of self-control is that it removes blame. When you don't argue, accuse, or defend yourself excessively, there's nothing to fight against. Conflict requires participation from both sides. When one person disengages calmly, the conflict dissolves. This forces introspection. She can no longer frame the situation as you being emotional, needy, or unstable. The narrative shifts. She begins to question her own behavior and decisions because your composure leaves no distractions. As time passes, the emotional memory of how you handled the situation becomes part of how she defines you. She remembers you as the man who didn't break under pressure, the man who didn't lose himself, the man who stayed true to his values. That memory carries weight, especially when compared to others who react impulsively or emotionally. Stability becomes attractive when chaos is everywhere else. Your emotional strength also allows you to let go of outcome dependence. You stop needing her return to validate your growth. You stop measuring your worth by whether she reaches out. This internal freedom is critical because it removes subtle neediness that even silence can't hide. When you genuinely detach from the outcome, your energy shifts. And that shift is often what triggers her to feel the loss most intensely. When she eventually reaches out, the power dynamic has fully reversed. You're no longer hoping, she's wondering. You're no longer waiting, she's testing. And because you've maintained emotional control throughout, you're able to respond from clarity rather than emotion. You don't rush. You don't overinvest. You observe. You allow her actions to speak louder than her words. This composure reinforces the new dynamic and prevents old patterns from resurfacing. The true reward of emotional self-control isn't getting her back. It's becoming the kind of man who doesn't lose himself in the process. Whether she returns or not, you win because you've mastered yourself. And mastery of self is the foundation of lasting confidence, attraction, and respect. When she finally understands what she lost, she doesn't just see the absence of your presence. She feels the strength of the man who remained standing when everything else fell away. While she is processing the absence, one of the most powerful transformations occurs quietly within you: your growth. Growth is not something you announce. It is something she senses, something that radiates naturally from your energy, actions, and presence. When you focus on improving yourself, not to impress her, but to become the best version of yourself, you create a magnetic force that draws attention without effort. She may have believed that she could take you for granted, that your attention and emotional investment were infinite, but your growth demonstrates that your value is dynamic, not static. Growth shows her what she truly lost, because it is impossible to ignore a man who evolves while the world around him remains stagnant. Growth manifests in several areas simultaneously, and it is essential that it be holistic. Physical growth, your health, appearance, and vitality, sends immediate nonverbal signals that communicate discipline, self respect, and energy. Mental growth, your knowledge, perspective, and intellectual curiosity creates depth that commands admiration and stimulates her mind in ways she may have taken for granted. Social growth, your network, connections, and influence demonstrates that your world is full and vibrant, that your attention is not scarce, and that you are a man who contributes value to those around him. Professional or financial growth reinforces that you are building a life with purpose, that your goals are independent of her, and that your trajectory is forward moving. When she observes these layers of growth, she starts to realize that losing you wasn't merely losing someone who cared, it was losing someone where you cared, it was losing someone rare, someone irreplaceable. Growth is also about developing emotional and psychological resilience. While she may have been used to eliciting a reaction from you in the past, your evolution into a man who is calm, composed, and self assured shifts the emotional equilibrium. Resilience allows you to maintain your focus, boundaries, and self respect, even in moments of temptation or emotional turbulence. This is crucial because women are naturally drawn to stability under pressure. When she witnesses that her absence, attempts to manipulate, or emotional games do not destabilize you, it triggers introspection. She begins to notice what she cannot replicate or control: your steadfastness, your self discipline, your unwavering purpose. Another dimension of growth that is profoundly magnetic is the refinement of your values and priorities. She will notice that your time, attention, and energy are no longer easily accessible. You have learned to protect your emotional space, invest wisely in relationships that honor your worth, and pursue goals that align with your authentic self. This change is subtle yet undeniable. She may try to compare her impact on you before and after this transformation and realize, perhaps for the first time, that your worth cannot be measured solely by her approval. This realization alone can trigger a deep sense of loss, as she understands that what she walked away from is not just a man, but a life force of energy, focus, and purpose that cannot easily be replaced. Growth also affects how you carry yourself and communicate. Your confidence becomes self-evident, not because you boast or dominate conversations, but because it emanates naturally from your posture, tone, and behavior. Women are highly attuned to nonverbal signals, and your body language, presence, and aura communicate more about your value than any words ever could. She begins to feel your evolution even before she fully comprehends it intellectually. The man she once dismissed or underestimated now occupies space differently. He is centered, grounded, and unshakable. She experiences a subtle pull toward you that she cannot quite explain, and this internal tension is the first step toward realizing the magnitude of her loss. Growth also teaches patience and long-term perspective. While she may expect immediate reactions, your focus on personal development ensures that your actions are measured, deliberate, and consistent. You understand that attraction is not regained overnight, and that rush in the process often undermines it. By prioritizing your growth over her immediate approval, you signal that your life is not contingent upon her decisions. This detachment does not mean indifference, it means emotional maturity. It reinforces the idea that if she wishes to return, she must meet you in the space you have created, rather than dragging you back into old patterns of dependency and neediness. A critical aspect of growth that often goes unnoticed is the internal transformation of self-worth. When you focus on becoming a better man, you stop defining yourself by external validation. Your happiness, fulfillment, and identity are no longer tied exclusively to her presence or approval. She may notice the shift subtly, through the way you interact with others, through your sense of calm, or through the way you respond to challenges. This internal strength creates a sense of scarcity, not in the sense of withholding, but in the sense of value. She realizes that access to the man you have become is not guaranteed. That realization triggers respect, attraction, and ultimately the desire to regain what you allowed to slip away. Growth also transforms your energy and the way you influence those around you. As you pursue new experiences, skills, and connections, you create a life that is rich, engaging, and vibrant. She will notice the differences in your social interactions, the stories you share, and the excitement that surrounds your life. When she compares herself to the vibrancy you embody, she recognizes that she is no longer the center of your universe. This realization can provoke regret because she begins to understand that your life continues to move forward and that she no longer automatically occupies the space she once took for granted. Moreover, growth reinforces boundaries, which are essential for sustaining attraction and respect. As you evolve, you learn not only to value yourself, but also to recognize what behaviors, interactions, and relationships are in alignment with your standards. By maintaining these boundaries consistently, you demonstrate that your growth is not superficial or performative, it is authentic. She experiences the subtle but undeniable truth that if she wants to regain a connection with you, she must do so in alignment with your standards, not by attempting to recreate old patterns. Your growth also challenges her perception of replacement. The world is full of options, but the man you are becoming is rare. As she watches you invest in yourself, she begins to realize that replacing what she lost is not just difficult, it may be impossible. This sense of irreplaceability is not manufactured through manipulation. It is earned through consistent, authentic self improvement. It creates a natural tension that re engages her emotional investment because she begins to feel that the opportunity to be with someone of your caliber may not come again. Finally, the culmination of growth is not merely her recognition of loss, it is the creation of a life so compelling that you become untouchable by desperation. When you have developed physically, mentally, socially, professionally, and emotionally, you demonstrate that your value is inherent and self generated. She will sense the difference between the man she once knew and the man you have become. That difference triggers reflection, desire, and ultimately a reevaluation of her choices. The man who has grown beyond neediness, who embodies strength, stability, and purpose, commands attention and attraction naturally. Growth, therefore, is not just a tool for personal fulfillment, it is a strategic and authentic way to restore attraction, rebuild respect, and create the conditions under which she can recognize the magnitude of her loss. By committing to continuous evolution, you shift from chasing validation to embodying value. And it is in that embodiment that she begins to understand, perhaps too late, that the man she walked away from was becoming a force of strength, confidence, and purpose that she cannot ignore. And that the life she lost is something worth returning to, but only if she approaches it with the respect, patience, and acknowledgement that your growth has earned. This is the essence of becoming irreplaceable. Your growth ensures that you are not the man of yesterday. You are someone stronger, wiser, and more capable of navigating life on your terms. And when she finally comes to terms with what she lost, it is not your words or persuasion that compel her. It is the undeniable reality of your transformation, the energy you radiate, and the life you have built for yourself that proves without question that she has lost someone extraordinary. Growth is the silent magnet, the invisible force, and the ultimate testament to your value, and it is what ultimately makes her reconsider, reevaluate, and, in many cases, come back for which she now realizes she cannot live without. When she finally decides to come back, it is rarely because of persuasion, arguments, or demonstrations of need. Her return is a natural consequence of self reflection and the realization of what she truly lost. Understanding this is essential because it shifts your mindset from desperation to composure. You must recognize that her return is earned, not guaranteed, and that your behavior at this stage determines whether the attraction she feels translates into a meaningful reconnection or simply passes without consequence. This understanding requires patience, awareness, and a disciplined approach to your actions, words, and energy. The first step in earning her return is to maintain emotional neutrality. Many men, when faced with the prospect of a former partner returning, fall into the trap of overreaction. They try to impress, overcompensate, or relive past behaviors that no longer reflect who they are. This is counterproductive because it undermines the very strength and growth that made her reconsider you in the first place. Emotional neutrality, on the other hand, signals self-control and confidence. It communicates that while you value her, you are not dependent on her return for your happiness or validation. This subtle but powerful message reinforces your worth and sets the stage for a balanced dynamic if she chooses to come back. When she initiates contact, it is crucial to respond in a way that reinforces your boundaries. This does not mean ignoring her or being cold. It means being measured, deliberate, and intentional with your words and actions. Every response should reflect the man you have become, confident, grounded, and self-respecting. By doing so, you signal that her access to your time and attention is not automatic. She must approach the relationship with intention, respect, a recognition of the value you bring. This reversal of the dynamic is often what deepens her attraction because she realizes that your presence is no longer a guarantee, but a privilege she must earn. Consistency is another essential element in this phase. Women are highly attuned to patterns of behavior, and inconsistency undermines trust and attraction. When she comes back, she will be testing the waters, consciously or subconsciously, to see if you have truly changed and if you are truly grounded. By maintaining consistent behavior, consistent calm, consistent boundaries, and consistent self respect, you reinforce the idea that your growth is authentic and sustainable. This reliability contrasts with the past, reminding her that the man she lost is not just temporarily strong or confident, but permanently evolved. At the same time, it is important to balance availability with scarcity. Availability does not mean immediate compliance with her desires. Scarcity does not mean complete withdrawal. The key is to be present and engaged without being reactive or needy. She should feel your presence as a positive force, not a safety net she can manipulate. This balance communicates that your life is full, purposeful, and independent of her choices, yet it remains open to genuine connection built on mutual respect and effort. When she comes back, she may attempt to revisit old patterns or behaviors that once gave her leverage. She may test your patience, try to provoke jealousy, or seek validation. It is critical to recognize these behaviors for what they are, tests of your emotional growth and boundaries. Responding with calm, measured clarity rather than impulsive emotion demonstrates that you have evolved. You are no longer reactive to manipulation or emotional games. By holding your ground, you show that your value is intrinsic and not contingent on external approval or drama. This is perhaps the most powerful lesson you can communicate, that she is returning not to control you, but because she now respects and desires the man you have become. Another vital component of this process is the reestablishment of attraction through action rather than explanation. Words alone are insufficient to rebuild deep emotional connection. Actions demonstrate your evolution. Whether it is through improved communication, increased emotional presence, pursuit of meaningful goals, or maintaining a balanced lifestyle, your actions consistently reflect the man she lost. These behaviors create a sense of security and admiration, reinforcing the magnetic pull that initially drew her to you, while simultaneously highlighting the growth she may have underestimated. Patience is equally critical. The process cannot be rushed without risking the erosion of the very attraction you cultivated. If she senses impatience, neediness, or desperation, her interest may fade again. Your ability to wait calmly, allowing her to navigate her emotions while remaining centered, amplifies her realization of loss. Time and space force her to confront not just what she missed, but the difference between who you were before and who you are now. It's a contrast that words alone cannot convey. Self-respect remains the cornerstone of this phase. Even as she comes back, you must prioritize your standards and values over fleeting emotional gratification. Accepting her return without discernment or compromise can undermine the growth you've achieved. Instead, view her return as an opportunity to reinforce the healthy dynamic you work to establish. This means setting clear expectations, upholding boundaries, and ensuring that any renewed connection is built on mutual effort, respect, and alignment of values. At a deeper level, her return is often tied to her emotional journey as much as your behavior. While she may initiate contact, the feelings that motivate her actions are the result of her own reflection, recognition of your absence, and awareness of the unique qualities you bring. Your calm, grounded, and self-respecting approach ensures that her experience of reconnection is positive and reinforcing rather than chaotic or draining. By maintaining this approach, you allow her to fully process her emotions and to understand that her choice to return is her decision, not a reaction to your attempts at persuasion. It is also essential to avoid replaying old conflicts or rehashing past mistakes excessively. While accountability and acknowledgement are important, excessive focus on past grievances can derail the progress of reconnection. Instead, the emphasis should be on the present dynamic. How you interact now, the consistency of your actions, and the demonstration of the growth you have achieved. This approach reframes the relationship as forward moving rather than anchored in the past, allowing her to experience a renewed attraction that is authentic and sustainable. The final and perhaps most transformative aspect of earning her return is the internal realization that you no longer depend on the outcome. Your happiness, fulfillment, and sense of self are no longer tied to whether she comes back. This detachment creates a subtle but profound shift in energy. You are attractive not because you are available at all costs, but because you are whole, centered, and independent. This energy draws her in naturally, compelling her to engage with the man you have become, rather than the man she left behind. Her return, when it occurs under these conditions, is different from a simple reconciliation. It is a conscious choice to engage with a man who has proven himself through growth, self control, and integrity. It is an acknowledgement that she now sees the value she once took for granted. And it is an opportunity to establish a relationship dynamic that honors your worth and the lessons learned during the time apart. This ensures that any renewed connection is built on mutual respect, emotional maturity, and genuine attraction rather than desperation or habit. Ultimately, the principle of earned return is a reflection of the broader truth of relationships. Value cannot be forced, attraction cannot be demanded, and respect cannot be negotiated. It must be demonstrated, embodied, and maintained consistently over time. By understanding that her return is earned, you shift from reactionary behavior to deliberate strategic action rooted in authenticity and self respect. You allow her to experience the difference between who you were before and who you have become, creating the conditions under which her return is not just possible but meaningful. In this process, you remain the man who is not defined by her choices, yet deeply capable of fostering a connection based on mutual effort and respect. You are the man who has grown, remained disciplined, maintained boundaries, and embodied value in a way that naturally attracts her back. Her return, when it occurs, is not a reward for chasing. It is a reflection of her recognition of the man you have become, the life you have built, and the undeniable truth that she lost something rare and extraordinary. This is the essence of earned return, the understanding that attraction, respect, and connection must be cultivated through personal growth, integrity, and emotional mastery, ensuring that any renewed relationship is stronger, healthier, and more magnetic than before.